All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning for this information session. My name is Mr. Helliwell. I'm the head of Lower School. If you are new to the school and don't recognise my voice, I just wanted to introduce the session this morning and introduce Mr. Mullen and the purpose behind this information session. We have done them in person previously. This session is being recorded. So therefore, anybody who's unable to attend, we can share the slides afterwards. And the process will be slightly different this morning in the sense that sometimes when we do these information sessions online, we have a Q&A afterwards. We want to make full use of the time this morning. So any questions that you do have, can I ask that you pop them into the chat for us? And then Mark has kindly offered to put together a sort of frequently asked questions document that he'll then share out with answers to any questions that come from the information that's shared this morning. I just wanted to say firstly that I'm very excited to introduce Mark, because for most of you will know him as our grade 5 class teacher. And I think a few years ago when he did a similar presentation in person, I said he was passionate about data. Well, 3 years down the line, and he is now our assessment and data lead, which is fantastic for us within the junior school. You know, we're learning, and I think what Mark is sort of new to this role this year, and that role has allowed for our teachers to be more scientific in their approach to monitoring student progress and really using the data that they have across all different types of assessment, whether that's formative or summative, to better understand their students and better understand their academic potential and the progress that they're making. And Mark has been instrumental in that. So, you know, speaking personally, having done over 25 student progress meetings in term 2 with our teachers, the work that Mark has been doing with the teachers has really paid off in that. So I'm not going to say a lot more. I'm going to hand over to Mark, who's going to talk you through, you know, the GL package and how those assessments work, and really how you can support and understand them better as a parent community. So thank you very much for joining us, and I'll hand over to Mark.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to Steve for the very kind message and introduction there. I would like to say, however, I am much more interested than what that introduction suggested, and that I do have many other interests other than assessment and data as well. But yeah, thank you for your attendance this morning. And just to reiterate, if you do have any questions, please feel free to pop that into the chat. And if we don't address them throughout the presentation this morning, then we'll definitely follow up with some written answers in response. Okay. So the purpose of this morning's session is to give you a brief overview. To start off, is we would like to share some key assessment information, particularly with our focus for term 3. We'd like to go into a little bit more detail to explain what our NGRT processes are, as well as the GL assessments, which will be coming up later in this term. We'd like to briefly outline how assessments support our learning and evaluations, and to reassure families about expectations, and most importantly about student well-being throughout this process, because that's got to be at the forefront of our thoughts as well. So the approach to assessment that we've developed, I'd say over the last couple of years, is that we've tried to find a much more balanced version of our approach to formative and both formative and summative assessments. Now, these are terms which teachers use quite casually in terms of the way that we talk about our processes, and sometimes they can be a little bit unclear for parents. So forgive me if I'm going into a little bit too much detail, but just to make those general terms more accessible for yourself, what they simply mean is that our formative assessments are all those ongoing assessments that the teachers make on a daily basis. It's any piece of information, any piece of evidence, or any interaction that the teacher has with the child throughout the process of a lesson, throughout the process of a week, throughout the process of a term. Okay. The summative assessment then is almost more of a summary approach. Okay, it comes at the end of a period or a block of learning. Okay, so it may be an end of term assessment, it may be an end of unit assessment, an end of learning, or it may even be indeed like the GL processes are at this time, and where they're a summary of the whole year or the whole academic year. Okay, we use a blend of these formative assessments as well as the standardized assessments. The summative assessments normally tend to be standardized. Our teachers use this to inform their teaching and learning, and to influence their planning. So when they come to their weekly planning sessions, they're using all of this information that they have about the students in order to plan for the next steps of learning. Okay, and just to mention the fact again about the student well-being approach to it is that it's not just on an academic basis. Okay, our teachers use a lot of information that's out with the academics. Okay, they use that from their conversations and from their interactions with the students. And we also base our PASS survey. The PASS survey, which we undertake every year, is called the Pupil Attitude to Self and School. And that's an overall well-being survey that asks students a little bit about how they feel about their approach to school, how do they feel about their self-confidence, their readiness for learning, their preparedness for learning, all of these types of things. So the teachers generally have a whole overview of the child, and it's not just solely focused on those academic basis. Would you like to contribute anything to that? Or
no, I think that's absolutely spot on. I was just going to ask Ms. Malhotra, can you see there the approach to assessment slide?
Yeah.
You can? Okay, that's fine then. Okay, thank you. Okay. Thanks.
But we're on the first page still, yeah? We can't...
So we're still on the cover page.
Yeah.
Okay, so it might be, Neetu, that you have to do the slide moving if you're hosting.
Not letting me do it either.
Okay. Okay.
Hang on.
Can we take responsibility for the hosting to come back?
Yeah. So I need, take it back. Yeah, now it's working now.
Okay, you can see the approach to assessment slide now.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I'll just briefly go through the purpose session again there, just to give you an overview. If you had missed that, apologies for the technical issue. It has been a while since we've sort of lost practice with Zoom techniques. Okay, so the first part or first aspect that we'd like to go into a little bit more detail this morning is the NGRT. And this is a term that hopefully you're quite familiar with maybe the students have come home and said that they've undertaken some of the NGRT tests throughout the course of the year, or you may even have had some discussions with some of our teachers during parent-teacher conferences, or indeed the student-led conferences which we had in term 2. So the NGRT is a product which is produced by GL, again, as well. So they are very much linked. And it stands for a new group reading test. Okay, now test is, and it's unfortunate that that's part of the term there, because we want to think of it as more of an assessment, as more of a tool that we use in order to gauge a student's progress in terms of their reading abilities. Okay, so the NGRT is administered 3 times throughout the course of the year. They are administered in Form A, Form B, and Form C, which link and coordinate with our terms. So Form A in Term 1, Form B in Term 2, and we will very soon be coming up with Form C for our Term 3. Okay, and what that allows us to do is to assess reading comprehension and decoding skills for students. So what does that mean? So the test is fully adaptive. It uses artificial intelligence.
Excuse me, it's very hard to follow. Slides are off, so I think we are on a different slide at the moment, and without seeing the slides, it's very hard to follow.
Okay. Neetu, could you tell what slide can you see just now?
Our approach to assessment strategy.
Okay, I'm not entirely sure why it's not sharing.
Now it's what is NGRT.
Okay, so you can see it like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for whoever just said that.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. So sorry. Just to touch back, it assesses the students' responses to their reading comprehension and their decoding skills. Okay. So that may make reference to their ability of how to interpret phonics or how to understand their phonics. It might be about vocabulary. So what do particular words mean, or what are the best words to complete sentences, etc. And then also it assesses what's called passage completion, where it would ask students to say what is the best fit in order for this to complete. So that tells us or gives us a good understanding of their reading comprehension skills. What that really does then, in the process of being able to do that 3 times throughout the year, allows us as teachers to track and monitor the process. Okay, and what Mr. Helliwell was referring to with our student progress meetings was that each term we'll come together and we'll meet with the teachers and we'll track the students. Okay, we'll look at the students to see how much have they moved forward in terms of their reading ability. Is there something that's in place that's perhaps hindering that development with regards to the reading? And if that is the case, what intervention can we take? What steps can we take to intervene to address those issues in order to make sure that we are making the progress that everyone should be making? Okay. Why is this important? It's important because it helps us to identify gaps with regards to reading. Okay, it highlights perhaps where there may be a difficulty. Apologies, I've just noticed a spelling error, which is not great when we're talking about literacy skills. It highlights the ability to understand basic vocabulary. Is their vocabulary extensive? Are they learning new words? Are they familiar with the meaning of those new words? And ultimately, their reading comprehension. Can they retrieve an answer? Can they answer a question? Can they go back to the passage and find the information that answers that question? But also their inference skills. What is the author suggesting from this? Or what is the author trying to, what is the point that they're getting across? Okay, it allows us to support targeted interventions, and it gives us the comparative data or the comparative information that we can have a look term on term. Okay, what was the student score last term, and have we seen those steps forward within that? And overall, that helps us to work with our language leaders within school to monitor the development of these skills. Okay, as well as the NGRT, we also will talk a lot of this term about the GL progress tests. Okay, and that's probably why most of you are here this morning in terms of what insight can we give you into the progress tests. Okay, so there are 3 which are administered throughout the grades 3 to 5, and we assess our English skills, math skills, and science skills through use of these assessments. Okay, they assess knowledge and skills. Okay, it's not just purely about knowledge acquisition and what have students learned. It's also about the skill set that they have within those particular curriculum areas. It is important to say that with being a PYP school or an IB school, the assessments are very much linked to or are aligned to the British curriculum. Okay, so we don't have full coverage. Let's say the coverage is not fully consistent, and by that what I mean is perhaps within the grade 5 assessment there may be some things that we don't particularly cover within our science lessons in grade 5, but they're concepts that the students have already explored earlier in their learning career with us. Okay. The assessments are all internationally standardized, which is incredibly useful because it allows us to compare ourselves as a school. How well are our students performing? How well are they performing year on year? We can make those comparisons. We can also have a look at how well are we performing with regards to the other schools in the community here in Dubai. Okay, how do we fare, and how do we fare internationally and globally? It is important to note that the assessments are government requirements. Okay, they are mandated by the UAE government. The NGRT and the GL assessments have now for quite some considerable time been a requirement that schools are obliged to undertake. And the reasons for that are that it supports the national agenda priorities in terms of developing our education standards throughout the Emirates. How are we tracking and monitoring the process of our students, and what are we doing in order to advance that to be the highest it can possibly be? Okay, that allows us to use these international assessments as benchmarks for attainment and progress, and that's where we can access those comparative aspects of it. Okay, as well as building the global competitiveness. We all know that we live in an ambitious city and an ambitious country, and we do want to be at the top of those tables with regards to our education practices. So this is a tool in which we can use to demonstrate our participation in that. Do you want to mention anything on this?
At this point, no. Thank you.
It is also important to note, but not too much. We don't want to pay too much attention to this because we should be aware that with regards to the KHDA, and when we have our annual school inspections, the KHDA do have complete access to this data and to this information. Okay, so fairly recently, Ms. Carney and myself have been working on collating all of the information that we have from previous years for our use of these assessments in order to report to the government to tell us that as a school, how well are we performing in terms of our levels of attainment? How much value added or how much progress are our students making from those early starting points? And you may have attended the session earlier in the year where we talked about CAT 4 and we talked about potential for learning. Okay, when our teachers sit at the beginning of the year and they use the information from the CAT 4, they set targets for their students. And they say, okay, by the end of year, this is where we would like to see, or this is how much progress we would anticipate that the students are making. And this is then the final closing part of that, where we use these tools to assess, well, have the students made the progress that we're intending for them to make? Okay, the information is all fully integrated into the inspection processes. And when we do come to that enjoyable time of the year, which we all absolutely look forward to, it means that our teachers are very well informed when they have the discussions with those inspectors that come and speak to us and talk to us. And when they ask us about our students learning, we've got so much more evidence and so much more practice that we can use in order to demonstrate the progress that the students have made. Okay, they're also incredibly useful for us to monitor the quality of our teaching and learning and making sure that the standards are of those high standards that we expect here at NLCS Dubai. I'm reliably informed by Ms. Neetu that one of the most important things that we want to think about this morning is what you can do at home to support the students throughout the process this term. Okay, and it's important just to note a few points on that. What we want as a school is that we want our assessment results to be a true reflection of academic ability. Okay, what we mean by that is we want it to be truly reflective of the student's ability. Okay, what sometimes we can be quite guilty of is putting a little bit of undue pressure on students at this time and spending a lot of time stressing and cramming revision practices and adding some more pressure onto the students, which is not always helpful, to be honest. Okay, so what we want to do this term and very much moving forward is to have a healthy approach to revision. Okay, we're encouraging it. We're saying it's always useful. It's always good to go back and to develop study habits, particularly with our students who are ready to transition into senior school. We do want to give them those habits, but what we don't want to be spending is 5 or 6 weeks fully intense when all we're doing is immersed within the materials that are covered in the assessments in order to make sure that results are as high as they can possibly be. We of course, we want the students to perform well, and we do want our results to be high, but we want it to be truly reflective of where they are, because ultimately, if they're not truly reflective, then we can't give the students support that they need in order to move forward or to progress within their learning. Okay, so our grade leaders will be in touch very soon with some light touch revision materials. Okay, they will provide some packs, here are some materials which will help you to study for English. Here are some things that will help to develop those math skills, and also with some scientific knowledge or things that, like I mentioned earlier, if it's concepts that students haven't been covering this year, it may be something that they touch on again just to refresh it in their minds before we undertake those tests.
I'll just come to that at the end, but I think so.
Okay, so what can you be doing at home to support the students? And we know that our parents are incredibly supportive of our students already. So what I would encourage you to do is to keep the routines consistent and calm. Just because we're coming into term 3 and just because we're talking about assessments and exams, it doesn't mean that practices should change. Okay, the regular routine homework that you're doing or any extra support that's going on at home, please just keep that as it is. Okay, we're always huge advocates of encouraging daily reading. And by reading, we're not just asking the students to read, but we're asking you to engage in the reading process with the students. Okay, if it's perhaps reading a chapter before bedtime and talking about what they've read. Okay, asking students, what does this particular word mean? Or why do you think the author has used this? Or what do you think the character might be feeling here? Okay, so engaging in all of these things will help to develop those comprehension skills, those understanding of vocabulary, all the things that we've talked about previously when referring to the NGRT assessments as well. Okay, as always, we would encourage you to promote a growth mindset, and that our students need to be aware of that these assessments are not the be-all and end-all of an academic career. Okay, I would say that probably the main point that I want to get across this morning is that these are assessment tools for our teachers. Okay, they ultimately will inform teachers of which grades they should be issuing when it comes to term 3 reporting. Okay, but it's not the sole purpose. It's not the only assessment information they will be using. I can reliably say that our teachers know your children incredibly well. Okay, they know their starting points, they know the challenges that they face, and they know the particular areas where they do well. And all we really use these tools for is some validation of that. Okay, are our judgments in line? Are our assessment levels of what we're saying the students are achieving, are they very much validated and agreed with by these external practices? Okay. I would also encourage you, if you do have any further questions, like we've said previously here this morning, if you pop them into the chat, then afterwards I am very happy to respond to some of these questions in text. But I would also make sure to say that that your teachers are your first port of call. Okay, if there is something that you would like to discuss with them, trust me, they're all very well informed about these assessments. We've done multiple sessions throughout the course of the year, and they're all very confident in talking to you about the approach and about the results and about the reports that we have, and are very happy to talk to you about that. So just to give you some key dates, in terms of the NGRT Term 3, actually, noticed another error now. I've got those dates mixed around. Our GL progress tests will be starting the week beginning the 19th of May. Okay, so our GLs for grade 3 to 5 will be the week beginning 19th of May, and our NGRT assessments, Form C, will be the week beginning the 21st of April. So apologies, but those two dates just need to be flipped around there. The revision materials that I've spoken about, which will be sent by grade leaders, they are in the process of putting those together just now, and I'll ask that they are shared with you before Friday the 18th of April. So those will come directly to you, and the teachers will spend some time talking to the students about some of the materials that have been sent. Okay, and just to note on here as well, when we were talking previously about access to reports, and if you want to see results, then with regards to the GL assessments, the results are available on request. If you would like to send a request to exams@NLCS Dubai, then our team there are very happy to share those with you. However, I will say with the NGRT, whilst we can talk to you about the results there, the NGRT results don't produce a parent report in the same way as which the GL tests will do. So those are not as readily available. But just to reiterate once more, if you do want to talk about anything with that, then our teachers are very happy to discuss with you. And just to finish off with some final thoughts, that most important message that I've said we would like to get across this morning is that these assessments are just one piece of the puzzle. Okay. Sometimes we're guilty of thinking it's an end of year assessment. There's a lot of pressure needs to rest on these, and that we want to encourage our students to be doing as much as they possibly can to prepare for them. That's not necessarily the case, okay? Because we do rely very, very heavily on lots of assessment information that we gather throughout the course of the year, and this is just one more final piece on that. Okay, we want to support our students to feel confident, to make sure that they're going into that and that they're using it as an opportunity to demonstrate their learning, okay, and to celebrate the effort and the progress that they've made. Okay, we very much want to take a positive and balanced approach to that. Okay, and just some final thoughts to finish off on. If you do have some questions, please make sure they are in the chat, and Ms. Nita will collate them, which we will then respond to and share along with the recording of this morning's session with that. And the final point, again, as I've said multiple times, contact your class teacher, your child's class teacher, if you're unsure about that. If it's something else that perhaps you don't want to talk to the class teacher and you would be more comfortable to speak to the grade leader, then of course that's possible. And failing that, I'm also happy to respond to any messages that you might like to send to my email address, which is listed here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mullen. I'm very aware that we are fast running out of time. So I'm just going to say, if you have questions, please do email either Mark or Neetu at Junior Parent Liaison, and then we'll use those questions to formulate the document of the sort of frequently asked question answers. I don't think you're going to have time now to add those to the chat. We will also share the recording of the slides, so you have that information as well once we've downloaded